Is the federal government going to do mass layoffs in 2025? Well, I'm reading a lot of articles just like this that are saying that 2025 is going to be the year that all these federal agencies, federal jobs, they're going to cut them down. So I've been reading a lot about all kinds of articles that are saying that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, if I said that right, is going to try to do what they did with Twitter, where they actually laid off like 80% of Twitters because they want to get the government more efficient, right? So can they do it? Well, in this video, we're gonna find it out. But first, let's talk about, do you guys feel the same way that the government needs to cut down on jobs and make it more efficient? And so as of this morning, while I'm filming this video, and this is not a scientific measurement because I only had 42 votes, and I did the poll up an hour ago, and now I'm filming. So if you want to be participating in these polls when I make them, that means most likely I'm going to do video after. So go out and vote. So should the government do mass layoffs? And from those 42 people, 81% said yes, and only 19% said no. And normally when I have that much of a swing early on, it kind of stays like that with the YouTube audience. So let's go read into the comments. So thank you so much for being a channel member. What I'm trying to do with channel members is I'm trying to buy a software from LinkedIn that is about $12,000. So if you want to support this channel also, please subscribe. It's $2.90. So if you want to support the channel, that's how you can do it. And let's see what it says. What this person said: start by thinning out all that extra weight. And I know that a lot of people feel that exact way, that they're like, hey, we got to get rid of all this bureaucracy and all this other stuff that is actually making the government less efficient. So now let's look at some ways how they could actually do it, because there's checks and balance, and not everything can just move through and get approved because there's courts and everything that it happens. Then there's unions, and it kind of complicates things. So what can happen is, I got some what's going to happen, what's most likely to happen, and the repercussion of if that happens. Okay, so there is the presidential authority. The president has some discretion in reorganizing federal agencies, but large-scale layoffs would likely require Congress approval. This could involve proposing budget cuts, eliminating programs, or downsizing agencies. So that is one way how they could do it. And since it's looking like they're going to have the House, the Senate, and everything else in Republicans' hands, and that is what the people really wanted, it is possible that that's going to happen. But is it going to end well, and are they going to get reelected if they do that? I have no idea, but as it's looking like that 80% said yes, might happen. So congressional approval. Congress controls federal budgets. To significantly reduce federal employees, Congress will need to pass a law cutting funding to specific departments or initiatives. So what they would have to do is basically come up in Congress to vote about it, like they do in a federal budget, and say, hey, we got to cut down. And is it likely? I don't know. But can it happen? It might, depending on how much they're gonna fight for it. And I already heard that Elon Musk, if they're not going to vote for what they're going to do in his interest, he says, I'm going to fund everybody's campaign that's against what you're going to do if you're not going to vote. So in other words, if you're not going to vote with us, then if the next election comes around, I'm going to fund your competitor's campaign. So that put pressure on, right? Because money talks. And here we go. We can do executive orders. The president could issue executive orders to streamline or recognize agencies, potentially reducing workforce needs. However, these orders must align with existing laws that are subject to judicial review. So, like I said, if they do that, it's going to be held up in courts, and we'll see what's going to happen. So then there is RIF, reduce in force. The federal government uses a structured process called a reduction in force, RIF, to eliminate positions due to budget constraints, reorganizations, or lack of work. So can they do that? They can. We will see if it's going to happen. So what I see could happen most likely is privatization, transferring government services to private contractors, could reduce federal employment. This requires legislation and often faces resistance to concerns of accountability and service quality. Yeah, but hey, budget cuts, it's already in the books. They're trying to do it. So let's see. So the challenges for all of you guys that are worried about it, that say, oh, what is going to happen? Here are some of the challenges that this is going to face. Legal challenges. Federal employees are protected by extensive legal frameworks, including union agreements and civil service laws. So it's not as easy as just telling them, go and leave and find another job. Political pushback, and this is where I kind of see it going, is large-scale layoffs would likely face significant resistance from unions, the public, and lawmakers across party lines, because if you're going to do mass layoffs, you're not going to get elected. But if Elon Musk said we're going to fund your competitor if you're not going to get elected, if you're not going to vote with us. So I don't know how big of a checkbook he has, but since he's the richest man in the world, I think he can fund some pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, let's see. Economical and social impacts. Cutting federal jobs could lead to disruption in government services, political backlash, and economic consequences. And yeah, so we're going to see where all this goes. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually move forward with all of this, because I see that there is a want and a need to eliminate some of the positions, but I don't know how far and how extensive that's going to go, because the government is so paper heavy, so paper based and oriented, that they're going to have, oh, if you want something done, you need to ask this person, and that person. And it just makes the whole process really, really hard. And if you fire the second person down the line of signing paperwork, then it's going to be like, okay, we fired Jimmy, but Jimmy needs to sign off so he can go to Martin, and Jimmy's not there, so who are we going to ask to sign this stuff? So there has to be huge change in how things are run at the government level. So it's going to be an interesting time for sure. Do I think that these people are going to have to be let go? I have no idea, but I see that there's a bunch of people are employed by the federal government. I heard some numbers that are saying that there's been people that have been on payrolls by the government that like haven't shown up to work in years, and you just can't do nothing about it. And one thing that I have to say is, when you go into the government, you know the pay isn't going to be that great. You kind of know that, hey, I'm not going to make that much money depending on position, but I have job security. That's one reason why some people might say, I'm going to be working in a federal agency for the government. And that's okay, that's just one person that wants to kind of do that. And now we're seeing that you're going to have to perform, you're going to have to do things, and things will change. And for all these people that are like, oh, I'm so worried, what can I do about it? Well, if you're in a government agency and you have specialized skills, you don't really have to worry about it. But if you were just a paper pusher and you don't really have any skills, time to start networking, time to start connecting with me on LinkedIn and trying to get something to do about all that kind of stuff, and start looking at, hey, if my job's going to be impacted, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to another state? Am I going to work for a state municipality, or I'm going to work for a city municipality? Am I going to do something else entirely? And it's going to be really, really interesting, because not some of the cities, not all of them, are also having funding problems. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what's up with the future of how government is run, because it's just so crazy, and so many people feel like that there is too much government involvement, and we're going to see how this is all going to pan out. And so might be good, might be bad. I have no crystal ball. I'll let you guys vote. If you haven't, you should go vote. And I'm always saying that elections have consequences. So for everybody that's like, hey, I'm for that, I'm not, go and vote, read what they do. But the problem that I see is, you try to do that, and then they get in and do something completely different. So is reading those policies something? No. I don't think that reading those policies is something that is going to really help, because they say one thing, do something completely different. So even if they have a nice little website, you just don't know. So it's going to be really, really interesting, because all these politicians, number one thing that they can do really great is lie. So it's going to be interesting to see where this is all going to go. But don't be worried, there always will be jobs out there. You just got to find them and start networking, trying to get jobs. When there's one job eliminated, there's another one. It might not be the same pay, might not be there, but there's always opportunities, and you might need to move. Because if you move to an area that doesn't have any job growth, it's going to be interesting because cities now have to compete. Companies or states now have to compete with each other, and it's going to be really, really interesting because if there's no jobs available and you're going to have high unemployment, the city's going to go bankrupt, right? And we're seeing it with Chicago, where they're having issues. And so this whole thing's going to be really, really interesting because even Chicago is facing deficit problems that they're saying non-essential government stuff is not approved anymore. They can't do it. And so when you have so much bureaucracy and so much people on payroll, and your city isn't going to produce that much, and you're going to see, all this other oversight, and you're paying for all these taxes, and you're doing all that. And people don't want to pay more taxes. People don't want to say, hey, I go to work and the taxes are just insane. I can't do it anymore. So then they vote a certain way, and then everybody that was working for that agency or got some of that money that was spent, it's just absolutely crazy. And one thing is I just got my renewal for my car in the mail, and you would not believe how much taxes there are on roads, on all these random institutions, and it's like $1,000 a year now to register a truck. It's just crazy on how it is too expensive, how it's expensive to just register a car in the state of Nevada. And it's like, oh my gosh. So I have no state income tax, but they always make it up somehow. So absolutely brutal. Are we gonna see that those are gonna come down? Hopefully, but they gotta take it from somewhere. So it is gonna be really, really interesting. And especially if you live in a disaster-prone state like Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, all these other ones that are gonna hit by hurricanes, we're gonna see that funding for FEMA and everything, my prediction is it's gonna be really hard to get money. Because if you start to take away positions, you're not gonna hire people to do the job because you need to save money. What is that gonna do? That is gonna make access to aid way, way more harder. And once you make it way, way harder to get aid, to get relief to people, then all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, it's gonna make it really difficult to get your house rebuilt, to get that rebuilt. And so what do? You gotta pick up and go where you want it, where you're treated best. And it's gonna be interesting because once we see that shift, it's gonna be congressional seats on the line. It's gonna be all these other things that are gonna have to happen where they say, hey, California lost a bunch of people, or a bunch of people moved there. And it's gonna be just really, really interesting because not everybody is aware of how bad the deficit actually is, because they report on some stuff, they don't report on others, and they just kind of keep the ball rolling. And once it gets too bad, like the city of Chicago, they ask Congress for, I don't know, how much did they ask? I think they asked for like $1 billion. I put it on the screen if I find the article. They asked Congress for emergency for $1 billion. And it's like, how do you not run your city in a way that you're not going to go belly up? Because Detroit went belly up, and it took them years and mismanagement to kind of get there, where big auto manufacturers left and they had to sell off streets, parking meters to the Saudis. That should be illegal in the first place, right? So they had to sell off stuff to Saudi Arabia, to, I think it was the parking meters or something, and now they're making so much money off these parking meters because the city just went belly up. And so if Chicago's going to be in the same spot, we're going to see what they're going to have to come up with. But yeah, elections have consequences. You almost got to run your city like a corporation. You can't just run a deficit forever and hoping that it's not going to catch up. It's going to catch up with you. And when we're letting all these federal employees go, that's going to catch up with you. How it's going to happen and what they're going to do is, I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball. But I'm telling you, letting all these people go, let 70, or even if they let 40% of these federal employees go, it's going to have consequences. If some of them are going to be positive because we're going to save money, and some of them are going to be negative because we might pay it out in lawsuits, we might pay it out in other ways with unemployment and all this other stuff. So it's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be along for the ride. Let me know what you think about all this. Is this something that you're worried about? Are you thinking you're going to be affected? If yes, let me know in the comments below. If no, that's all right too. It's quite cold, so I gotta hurry up a little bit because the wind is just brutal. If you see that in my video, if you haven't, please like and subscribe. Thinking about becoming a channel member. I really try to get a software so I could do more comprehensive analysis, and it is so cool. That software, I got a demo the other day, and it basically tells you where talent is and what it needs to, what these people have to get hired, so I can give you comprehensive analysis to see what people put on the resume, where they're coming from, what kind of companies they came from, where they're going. And it's just a super software, but it's really expensive, so I can't just justify doing it. I think I'm about $600 saved up so far for it, so 11,000 something bucks to go. I really appreciate everybody that's a channel member. Please give this video a like, and if you want to subscribe, that would help me out a lot. But please like this video so I can buy that, so I can spread it out, so I can make some money off of ads. I really appreciate it. So let me know what you think about all this. Gotta get back in the car. It is, even though it's about 60 out, it is still freezing cold. And this is my time of year that I'm just like, oh no, don't like it. I don't like it. So I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Let me know what kind of articles you're reading. And that's it. See you in the next one.